Says there's a real estate agent. Get ready. I'm gonna catch you up on some more real estate stuff. Getting a buyer to make a reasonable offer. Buying real estate in today's technology savvy world is much different than buying real estate in yesteryear. The details of what someone paid for a home, what other homes have sold for, and what improvements and renovations cost are readily available except in non-disclosure states. In the low inventory market the industry has been experiencing for a few years, homes don't sell for 60 cents, 70 cents, or even 80 cents on the dollar, and the market isn't heading for a correction. Prices aren't going to drop through the floor as they did before 2009 and 2011. A buyer isn't going to get a steal on a home no matter how many podcasts they listen to or online videos they watch. Your job as an agent is to convince the buyer to make a reasonable offer that seller will accept, and in this section, I explain how you can do that. Educating your buyer on what is fair market value. Before you get your computer or tablet out to craft one word in your real estate contract, your discussion must focus on what is fair market value for the home the buyer wants. Your assessment is based on the current moment, that day's market conditions, and the number of days the house has been on the market at the time of the offer. You must show the recent closed sales, pending sales, and active for sales properties along with the days on the market for each category. It's also advisable to compare the sold price, the asking price for recently closed sales, and you may find that all had sold for more than the asking price, which will play into what the seller is willing to accept for the house your buyer wants. At this point, your calculator becomes your best friend as you break down this data to percentages. By getting out of the home and into the percentages, you change the conversation from being emotional to being a matter of math. If you calculate the last 4 sales in the area of the home your client wants and they have sold at an average of 10% more than the asking price, it's logical to assume that your buyer is going to have to offer close to or more than the asking price to secure this home. Unless it's drastically overpriced, the only question based on the math is, are they prepared to do that? Gaining acceptance of rule number 1, don't offend the seller. What many buyers and agents fail to grasp is that it negotiates once one of the parties is offered or feels taken advantage of. Negotiations become more labored and less productive. The offered party is more likely to dig into their heels and become unwilling to negotiate further. Too frequently, a buyer and a weak agent make an unreasonably low initial offer that just stops negotiations and sends the wrong message to the seller. This is especially true if the seller is not desperate to sell. When a buyer comes into 15, 20, or even 25% below the asking price of property that is within a reasonable margin of fair market value, the seller is more likely to tell the buyer to pound sand and not counteroffer. That's why it's important that you establish today's fair market value and discuss what properties are selling for as a percentage of their asking prices. You have to educate your seller about what might be a good outcome, great outcome, or reasonable outcome off the list price, given the market conditions, quality of the property, and level of buyer compensation. This is the way to set reasonable expectations and arrive at the finish line of securing the right home for your client. Packaging the buyers as the best seller buyer. No matter what the marketplace is doing, a seller and listing agent still have one objective in mind: to attract and receive an offer from the best buyer possible in the marketplace. The first reaction might be that best buyer is the one that offers the most money for the home. In some cases, the best buyer may involve more than just what the person is willing to offer on a seller's home, including terms, security, and overall risk. A buyer may offer more money than the others, but may expect the appraisal to come in lower than the offer price. They realize that now, a few weeks in, their negotiation position is enhanced because the seller has already made plans, packed up things, given things away, or has secured another home. The seller could be more open to negotiation, and the buyer has an ally in the low appraisal. The best buyer might not be the highest price, but could have the most favorable terms or offers the greatest security and the lowest level of risk. I'm a real estate investor who's bought all types of property in all manner of transactions. I have bought bank foreclosures, VA foreclosures, HUD foreclosures, pre-foreclosures, short sales, equity sellers, and seller finance deals. The common theme is that the seller, no matter who they are, wants the continuity of closing the deal and reduced risk of non-performance on the part of the buyer. They want a buyer who will do exactly what they offered to do in their purchase contract if the buyer can't do what was offered. The seller wants a series of credible reasons why and what they can do, instead a clear and organized plan. As an investor, I have won against other investors because I am reasonable when a good deal comes along. I am fundamentally fair, which means I don't feel others have to lose for me to win. The agents who have represented me are understanding agents in the investment property niche. They package me well and convey my story as the golden buyer, and the buyer of such high quality the seller needs to give their offer special consideration and evaluation. I know that I've secured properties because of the agent's skill in packaging me as the golden buyer. The best buyer has their act together, both in knowledge based on what they want and financially with their cash. Proof of funds and financing. The typical buyer is all over the map in their organization, goals and objectives. Liquid funds and documents for the leader and the financing process. They are in the constant process of the lender needing more and more documentation to complete the loan. Your job as an agent is to convince a buyer that going through the whole lending process will reap the benefits of making their offer more competitive, improving their odds in multiple offer situations, saving them money, and reducing their stress. If you can do that, you will be well on your way to packaging your buyer as the best buyer. Stressing the importance of the lending process. The typical buyer procrastinates and gathers their documents from the lender to the last minute. They view the lending process as a big pain in the posterior, and the truth is it's not fun. It takes a lot of time to track down the tax returns, pay stubs, credit card statements, W-2 statements, 1099s, bank statements, and mortgage statements, and brokerage account statements. They have to order credit reports, which many buyers think will drop their FICO score, something they don't want to do until they find the right house. Help the buyer understand they have to do all this anyway, and doing it early offers financial benefits, negotiating benefits, and peace of mind. Agents may have said, "You can't make an offer. I don't show you a home, or you won't get the home." All that does is put the buyer in a "I'll show you" mode, or worse yet, "I'll just find another agent who will." Threats and intimidation rarely work. Instead, convince them that all the hassle and prep work they have to do will be valuable and beneficial to them. The essence of great sales is to convince someone to do something that is beneficial to them, or convince them to do it faster. Here's one approach you can use. The most powerful buyer in the marketplace is the cash buyer. They have the greatest influence in securing a home in competitive offers. They have negotiating power, whether that is better price or terms. Since we're not able to be a cash buyer, we need to shoot for being the second most powerful buyer, a cash-like buyer. The cash-like buyer has completed all their loan requirements and documentations and is fully approved pending finding the right home. This can put you ahead of most buyers and will typically yield money savings or better odds in getting the house of your dreams. I assume you'd like to have as much control during negotiations with the seller as you can get. This is the way to do that. Writing your golden buyer story. If you can't convince your buyer of the benefits, you have no chance to package them. But if you get your buyer client to take the right actions, you need to put that effort to good use. You need to craft a backstory about your buyer to make them attractive to the seller, who they are, what their experience is, where they work, how substantial they are, what have they looked at, what is their intent. This is not crafting a love letter to the seller that has been frowned upon in most states. It's a story of what the buyer has done and is prepared to do, so the seller sees them as more substantial and lower risk than other buyers. When I buy investment property, my backstory is about how many I own. I own. How long have been investing? How many deals I have done? That I don't write a bunch of lowball offers hoping one will stick. I have fully run the numbers of ROI, cap rate, cash on cash return, initial rate of return, and put together real pro formation statements with accurate figures because I own property and know my numbers. I have factored in repairs I expect to make with my dollars as part of my offer. If those repairs are more by a little, I will likely just buy anyway. If it's a lot, we will have another discussion and I will share my math and exactly how I arrive at my conclusions. I close on more than 96% of what I get into contract with sellers because my package looks good. Most agents email the offer. They may provide a poorly written pre-qualification letter or pre-approval letter with as many holes as Swiss cheese. They may include proof of funds to establish where the funds are coming from, but that's it. They don't make a call to discuss with the listing agent. They don't package up the buyer, create a story, navigate, or advocate strongly for their buyer. You can set yourself and your buyer apart by crafting a good package for presenting the offer. All manner of packaging a buyer won't make up for a crapping end and unreasonable offer. You still have to get your client to write a solid offer, which I talk about earlier in this chapter in the getting a buyer to make a reasonable offer section. We're gonna take a break from this for a moment. Thank you so much. Check out my other videos. Bye-bye.